Chase Walker was the king of Ridgeway High. Star quarterback, perfect smile, loved by teachers, followed by guys, adored by girls. But his crown was heavy. After a football scrimmage, his father called. 3 incomplete passes, Chase. You're playing soft. Chase laughed it off, but his hands trembled on the steering wheel. At home, the air was always thick with the ghosts of his older brother's failures and his parents' silent arguments. The next day at school, he saw a perfect target for his frustration. A new, quiet student named Jordan Brooks. Mocking Jordan made Chase feel in control, powerful. But Jordan never reacted. He just took it, his silence more infuriating than any comeback. One Friday, Chase knocked Jordan's books to the floor. This time, a teacher saw. Chase got detention. That night, his father's rage was a thunderstorm, a disgrace to the family name. Later, Chase overheard his mother cry on the phone. He's turning into his father. The following Monday, the school had changed. Whispers about Chase's father being arrested in a bar fight slithered through the halls. The worship in his classmates' eyes was gone, replaced by pity and gossip. In the cafeteria, a student accidentally tripped, sending a tray of food down Chase's shirt. The same cruel laughter he used to lead erupted around him. He stood frozen, humiliated. Then Jordan walked over. He didn't smirk. He just held out a stack of napkins. "It sucks, doesn't it?" he said quietly. The words haunted Chase. He started skipping football practice. His home life became unbearable. After a brutal fight with his drunken father, Chase packed a bag and left. He wandered to a shabby local gym, a place from his childhood. A light was on. Inside, he saw Jordan and his father on the mats, practicing Brazilian jiu-jitsu. They moved with quiet, fluid grace. There was no shouting, only focus control. Jordan's father saw Chase in the doorway. "You look like you want to hit something," he said. "Start by learning not to." Chase stepped onto the mat. He was terrible, all anger and no technique. Jordan patiently taught him to fall, to yield, to breathe. The gym became his sanctuary. He was learning a new kind of strength. But the old Chase wasn't gone. When a bully taunted him about his father, Chase's fist clenched, the red mist descending. Just as he was about to swing, Jordan's hand was on his shoulder. "You're not your dad, Chase. Not unless you decide to be." Chase walked away, and it felt like his first real victory. That night, a text from his mother. His father was back in the hospital after another fight. It was bad. At school the next day, everyone knew. They avoided him, not knowing what to say. Then a new, scrawny kid tripped and fell, his lunch scattering. The scene was a mirror of Chase's own humiliation. A snicker started. Before it had spread, Chase moved. He knelt and began helping the boy pick up his food. "You okay?" he asked. The cafeteria fell into a stunned, profound silence. That evening, Chase went to the hospital. His father looked small and weak in the bed, the machines beeping softly. Chase didn't yell. He didn't cry. He simply said, "I'm not going to be you." He walked out and headed home under the streetlights, his steps slow but steady, finally learning how to breathe. Sometimes the hardest person to fight is the one staring back at you in the mirror. The walk home was the longest and quietest of Chase's life. The weight of his words to his father still hung in the air around him, a shield against the past. When he opened his front door, the house felt different. The silence wasn't tense or waiting to be broken. It was just quiet. His mother was sitting at the kitchen table, a single mug between her hands. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed but clear. "Your coach called," she said, her voice soft. "He said you missed practice again." Chase just nodded, waiting for the disappointment. She took a slow breath. "Then he told me he saw you at the grocery store yesterday, helping Mrs. Gable carry her bags to the car." She looked at her son, really looked at him, as if seeing him for the first time in years. "Who are you, Chase?" It was a question he'd been asking himself. He didn't have an answer yet. The next morning at school was a new kind of strange. The whispers were still there, but they had a different tone. They weren't about his father anymore. They were about the quarterback on his knees, helping a freshman. As he walked his locker, he saw Jordan leaning against it, a small, knowing smile on his face. "You coming to the gym tonight?" Jordan asked. For the first time, Chase didn't hesitate. "Yeah, I'm coming." Training was no longer about exercising his anger. It was about building something new. He learned to channel his intensity into focus, his power into precision. He was still miles behind Jordan, but the frustration was now a motivator, not a barrier. One evening, as they were leaving the gym, Jordan's father clapped a hand on Chase's shoulder. "Control isn't about never getting hit, son," he said. "It's about knowing how to get back up. You're learning how to get back up." A week later, the final football game of the season arrived. Chase hadn't touched the ball in weeks. The stadium lights were bright, the crowd a roaring beast. From the sidelines, he watched his team struggle without him. Logan threw an interception. The score was lopsided. The coach paced, his eyes flicking to Chase, a silent plea on his face. At halftime, in the silent, grim locker room, Logan walked over, his helmet in his hands. "We need you, man," he said, his voice low. "I can't do this." The old Chase would have savored the moment. The new one just felt the weight of his teammates' hopes. He looked at Jordan, who had come to watch the game and was standing by the door. Jordan gave him a single, slow nod. "Don't play his game," Jordan said. "Play yours." Chase stood up. He walked over to the coach. "I'll go in, but not as a quarterback. Put me in as a receiver." The second half was a different game. With Chase as a decoy and a new unexpected threat, the defense was thrown into chaos. He wasn't playing for his father's approval or the crowd's roar. He was playing for the sheer, clean joy of it. In the final minute, they were down by 5. Logan launched a desperate pass. Chase, covered by 2 defenders, leaped. It wasn't a perfect catch. He fumbled it, juggled it, and somehow, as he fell to the ground, he secured it in the crook of his arm. Touchdown! The stadium erupted. His teammates mobbed him, slapping his helmet, screaming in joy. But as he got to his feet, his eyes found his mother in the stands. She was crying, but this time they were tears of pure, uncomplicated pride. And standing a few rows behind her was Jordan, who simply raised a fist in a quiet, solid salute. The victory party was loud and bright, but Chase slipped out early. He walked to the gym, still in his jersey. He stood alone on the mats, breathing in a familiar scent of sweat and resolve. He looked at his reflection in the dark window, a boy in a dirty uniform, his body tired, his mind finally, blessedly quiet. He wasn't the golden boy anymore. That mask was gone, shattered on the cafeteria floor. He was just Chase, a work in progress. And for the first time, that was more than enough. The fight was far from over, but he finally had the one weapon he needed most: the will to face himself and the courage to change what he saw. The silence of the gym was a comfort. Chase stood on the mats, the adrenaline from the game finally receding, leaving a deep, satisfying exhaustion in its wake. He was just about to change when the door creaked open. It was Logan, still in his own jersey, holding 2 slushies from the gas station down the street. He looked awkward, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Figured you'd be here," Logan said, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space. He held out a bright blue slushie. I never said I was sorry. For everything. For being a shadow." Chase took the cold cup. The condensation felt real against his palm. "You were just following the leader," he said, not with bitterness, but with a newfound clarity. "I wasn't exactly leading us anywhere good." They sat on the edge of the mats, the silence between them easier now. "Things are different now," Logan said after a while. "With the team, with everyone, they see you different." "I see me different," Chase replied. The next Monday, the dynamic in the halls had shifted again. The pity was gone, replaced by a cautious respect. In the cafeteria, the new kid he'd helped waved shyly. Chase waved back. He sat with Jordan, and to his surprise, Mike and Sarah joined them, followed a moment later by a hesitant Logan. It wasn't the popular table. It was just a table. A new challenge arose a week later. A transfer student, a hulking kid named Marcus, started making trouble. He shoved freshmen, talked back to teachers, and had a particular sneer for anyone he deemed weak. He zeroed in on Jordan, calling him the professor and knocking his books from his hands. Chase saw it happen. He saw the old, familiar script play out in his head. The taunt, the laughter, the show of force. The old Chase would have confronted Marcus, fist first, to prove a point. The new Chase walked over. He stood between Marcus and Jordan, but he didn't push. He didn't shout. "Hey, man," Chase said, his voice calm level. "Not cool." Marcus scoffed, puffing out his chest. "What are you going to do about it, quarterback?" Chase didn't take the bait. He simply bent down, picked up Jordan's books, and handed them to him. Then he turned back to Marcus, his posture relaxed, his hands open at his sides. He held Marcus's glare, not with aggression, but with an unshakable stillness. The fight drained out of Marcus's eyes, replaced by confusion, then frustration. He muttered a curse and shoved past, but the victory was Chase's. He had won by not fighting at all. Jordan looked at him. "Jiu-jitsu?" he asked. Chase shook his head, a small, genuine smile touching his lips for the first time in what felt like forever. "No," he said. "That was just me." After school, he went to the hospital. His father was sitting up, watching a game on the small TV. The room was quiet. "I'm not going to be you," Chase said again, reaffirming the truth he had found. His father didn't look away from the screen. A long moment passed. Then, in a voice rough and quiet, he said, "Good." It was a single word, but in that room, it felt like a truce. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't love, but it was a start. That night, Chase lay in bed, not staring at the ceiling in anxiety, but simply resting. His phone buzzed. It was a text from the group chat. Jordan, Logan, Mike, Sarah, a meme, a plan for the weekend, a stupid joke. He typed out a reply, his thumb hovering over the send button. He wasn't the golden boy. He wasn't his father's son. He wasn't even a champion quarterback anymore. He was just Chase. And for the first time, that felt like everything. The story wasn't about a fall from grace anymore. It was about building something new from the pieces that were left, and the foundation he was discovering was solid. The text chain buzzed with life. A digital campfire as new friends gathered around. A weekend plan was forming. A hike at Ridgeway Point. Simple, normal, something the old Chase would have scoffed at as boring. He typed, "I'm in," and felt a quiet thrill. The next day in history class, Mr. Henderson assigned a major partner project. As he read out the pairs, Chase heard his name paired with Ben, the freshman he'd helped in the cafeteria. Ben's eyes went wide with a mixture of awe and terror. The old Chase would have groaned, asked for a reassignment, or worse, let Ben do all the work. After class, Chase found Ben fumbling with his backpack. "Hey," Chase said, "you want to meet at the library after school? We can figure out this project." Ben just stared. You're serious?" "Yeah," Chase said. "I hear you're good with timelines. I could use the help." The simple act of asking for help, of admitting he wasn't the expert, felt like using a new muscle. At the library, they spread their books out. Ben was shy at first, but soon he was animated, explaining historical cause and effect with a passion Chase had never had for anything except football. For 2 hours, they worked. It was the most productive, peaceful study session Chase could remember. Walking home, his phone rang. It was his mother. "Chase, your father. He's being released tomorrow." Her voice was tight with familiar anxiety. He's asking for a ride home. The world seemed to tilt. The fragile peace he'd built felt threatened. The hospital was a controlled environment. Home was the battlefield. "I don't know if I can, Mom." "I understand," she said, and he could hear the disappointment. Not in him, but in the situation. He didn't go to the gym that night. He went to the empty football field and sat on the bleachers, the cold metal seeping through his jeans. He played the conversation with his father in the hospital over in his head. Good. Had he meant it? Or was it just the pain medication talking? The sound of footsteps on the aluminum stairs made him turn. It was Jordan, holding 2 paper cups of hot chocolate. "Your mom called mine," Jordan said simply, handing him a cup. "She's worried about you." They sat in silence for a moment, steam rising into the cool air. "I don't know if I can face him," Chase admitted, the words tasting like a confession. What if he's the same? What if I slip back? Jordan took a slow sip. The mat doesn't care who you were yesterday, he said, echoing his father's wisdom. It only cares about the balance you find today. This is just a different kind of mat. The next afternoon, Chase stood with his mother in the hospital parking lot. His heart was a drum in his chest. The automatic door slid open, and his father walked out, leaning on a cane. He looked older, softer. The fire in his eyes was banked to embers. He saw Chase and stopped. The air was thick with unspoken words. Chase's mother moved to help him, but Chase put a hand on her arm. He walked forward, alone. He met his father's gaze, not with defiance, but with a steady calm he had learned on the gym mats. He didn't say, "I'm not going to be you." He didn't have to. It was in his posture, in his eyes. His father gave a slow, almost imperceptible nod. "The car is this way," was all he said. As Chase reached for his father's small duffel bag, their hands didn't brush. There was no dramatic hug, no tearful reconciliation. But as they walked to the car, his father didn't lean on him, and Chase didn't walk ahead. For the first time, they walked beside each other. It wasn't a victory. It was a step. And for now, that was enough. The real fight. He was learning wasn't the grand, dramatic moments, but in the quiet, consistent choice to walk a different path, one step at a time.